Hello, and welcome to Guidance for Better Life. My guest today is Irv Kempf, and he's going to share a beautiful story how he went from a life-threatening blood infection where he was expected to probably die to paying more attention to God. I think you'll find it an interesting story. He didn't start out paying much attention to God, but things have a way of changing your view of life, and it's a really beautiful story. So thanks for watching. Hey, Irv.
Hi, Dale.
I wasn't going to start quite that way, but you didn't pay a whole lot of attention to God until you were maybe in a deathbed almost.
That's it. Yeah, that's accurate.
And somehow it softened you up a bit,
It did.
almost dying.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of folks. But you weren't there for him, but he was sure there for you in this story.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So you had a life-threatening blood infection, 25 years ago?
Yeah, maybe 30.
30?
I think it was
30.
25 at the time I wrote the story.
Oh, you were 25.
And that was like 5
okay.
years ago.
And you're just a few years older. So you're in bed. Your story starts out, you're in bed, and your family's leaving to go back. Your wife, Diane's leaving for the night. And the doctors, I think, gave you 50-50 chance of being alive when they came back in the morning. Is that the gist of it?
When my wife and the kids left, I had a sense that it was serious. So I asked, after they left, I asked the doctor, how serious is this?
Okay.
And at that, what had started out as a swollen lymph node in the back of my head was going down the side of my neck,
Okay.
Successive lymph nodes.
Okay.
So he said, if it gets to your heart, you're going to die tonight.
Okay.
So, and I said, what are my chances? And he said, I'd give you 50-50. So during the night, I had all kinds of serious symptoms. My ear got very swollen and actually split. It was so swollen. This whole side of my face was swollen.
Was the infection moving there?
The infection was moving toward my heart.
Okay.
Successive lymph nodes swelled down my neck, then under my armpit, so it wasn't very far from my heart.
Okay.
And I would get up at night. I didn't sleep much that night till after I had a special moment, which I'll go into.
Okay.
But I got up, it was maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, and went to the mirror in the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and I could see the symptoms getting worse and worse. And this, for the first time in my adult life, I said a prayer to God.
Okay, and I think a lot of folks can relate to that.
Yeah.
And that's nothing wrong with that, but for some reason in adult life, you're busy and just God was not a big part of your life. But you were a big part of his life, it turns out. But at that time, it wasn't in your daily routine to think about God. You didn't go to church a whole lot, I guess.
No.
But why were you drawn to say a prayer?
It suddenly became in my heart to do that.
Okay.
To say a prayer, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world for the first time that I could recall. And I asked God if I could please survive the night so that I could help Diane raise our 2 children.
Yeah, you had a son and a girl and the daughter, and you wanted to help raise them.
And when I went into the bathroom, I was scared, and what I saw in the mirror made me more scared.
Yeah.
And then I said my prayer. It was a very simple prayer. But as I said the prayer, I felt a change come over me, like the instant I had completed it. And I started to feel peaceful. And I don't know how I knew that God heard my prayer, but I knew.
Just almost innately, somewhere in your higher self, soul just knew that God heard your prayers.
And it was amazing. It was like, here I was, 50-50 chance of surviving, but I felt peaceful.
You said in your story you're peaceful and calm, somewhat relaxed.
And
you had a few moments earlier before you prayed, you weren't peaceful at all.
And I knew in my heart that God heard my prayer.
Okay.
And I started to feel better. And I don't know if it was physical or a spiritual feeling better, but I knew I was going to be okay.
Okay.
And I was able to go to bed. After that, I went and I fell asleep, and I had the rest of the night I slept very well and soundly.
In your story, you weren't sleeping well at all because
No.
you were worried, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden you had a peaceful and fell asleep, and
And somehow, when I went to sleep, I knew that I was going to be okay. And I knew that before the doctor confirmed it the next morning. I already
Wow.
knew in my heart I was going to make it.
okay.
And yeah, he was pleasantly surprised with how things turned out the next morning.
Wow.
So it's an amazing experience.
So I'm just not sure what to even say from not thinking about God, but it didn't sound like a panic, save me. Even though you hadn't prayed much as an adult, it seemed natural to you, almost innate, like deep down, you already had a relationship or already trusted in God.
Yes.
I don't want to add something here that's not right, but that's what it sounds like. That on some level, maybe a soul, your higher self knew God heard your prayers, and you said it was a natural thing to do.
Yeah, and it surprised me that I was confident that he heard my prayer.
Yeah.
And I guess it surprised me that he was right there waiting to hear from me.
It's almost like you'd had a relationship you didn't know about.
Yeah.
It was like an old friend to you almost.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
I didn't pick up the phone to call anybody when I got to this point of being worried about whether I was going to make it.
Just went to sleep.
What I was thinking is I turned to prayer, and that wasn't
Okay.
my normal way of dealing things.
What would you have normally done? Start calling people, telling them goodbye, or?
Well, I don't know what I've done in that situation, but I maybe called my dad, or
Okay.
I didn't want to tell Diane. I didn't want her to have that worry.
Okay, your wife, when she left that evening, did not know.
No.
Is that serious?
Yeah.
Does she know now?
Yeah.
That's not-
I told her once I was out of the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, since that night, did you go back to not thinking about God much, or has God become an active part of your life?
God's a constant part of my life now. Probably the most important part of my life.
Yeah.
And through the teachings that you've shared with us at the school,
The
And-
Guidance for Better Life Retreat Center up here.
and experiences that we've had, and you helping us to better understand our experiences, I know that God is with me every minute, every
Yeah.
moment. I know that He's there if I'm in trouble. I know if He's there during good times.
Yeah, good times and not so good times.
I know He loves me very
Absolutely.
deeply. I know He cherishes me.
He loves and cherishes all his children,
Yeah.
whether they go to church or not.
Yeah. And I appreciate the fact that I now know that I love Him too. And that's very
Wow.
important to me.
Wow.
It's a two-way street.
It almost sounds like deep down you had a relationship and a knowingness, but you weren't thinking about it
Yeah.
consciously. And I wonder if you hadn't had a life-threatening blood infection, if it would have always been deep down your relationship and never bloomed like it has in your life.
I think
It's
that's-
almost like that was a blessing.
It was. It was the beginning of me more actively seeking a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And not knowing where to, other than prayer, which is important, but not knowing where to go. And then eventually, I found out about you and your school, and that just kept me going.
I've known you for years, and God is very important to you and Diane, your
Yeah.
wife. Not just when you need something, but all the time,
Yeah,
on good days and bad.
yeah. He's
So
always there.
So it seemed like a very bad thing actually was a huge blessing in your life. And from that angle, that view, because I know you're so serious about your relationship with the divine, I wonder if you would have ever woken up to experience the joy of a relationship with God, knowing your prayers are heard, knowing He loves you on good days and bad or whatever. If you hadn't had something dramatic to wake you up, I guess we'll never know.
That's a real possibility. And
Yeah.
if that's what it took, then I'm thankful that
Yeah.
it happened the way it did.
Yeah, it was well worth
Because
it.
it woke me up. And
Your prayer was answered. You got
Yeah.
to raise your kids.
And
You got to help your wife, Diane.
yeah.
I think it's really interesting, not just that you lived. You woke up the next morning, if you could have even slept, and you were okay, you were starting to recover. That would have been amazing. But almost immediately after you prayed, you felt calm and peace. You had a knowingness it was going to be okay. You knew your prayer was heard. That's got to be, I think that's deep in everybody, even if they don't know it or they want to argue with me or something.
Yeah.
But after doing spiritual retreats for, I think, 29 years now, and you've been up here many years, I think it's in all of us. I think God plants a seed for a relationship that maybe never blooms, always stays dormant until something happens like this where you have to reach out. But you were so calm and peaceful and had such a knowingness. It's almost like you had a relationship that you didn't know you had.
Yeah.
He already loved you. And deep down inside, I think he had a seed inside you somewhere in your heart when you were created to reach out, and it'll be okay. And he'll hear you.
And since then, I've become aware that there's other prayers that were in my heart that I didn't even know were there. And
well, that's cool.
To know God better, to feel his love, to see his blessings in so many aspects of my life.
Do you see his blessings frequently?
Yes, and that just makes life extremely sweet. What's referred to in the Bible as abundant life. And to know that I love him, that's the other part.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of these things until I had the sudden awakening there in the hospital. Yeah. And these things started to reveal themselves over time.
The next day when you were better, and the next weeks and months after the blood infection, did you keep a relationship, or did it fade for a while? Or was it different?
I think it took me a little while to realize what had happened. As I look back on it, I'm thinking maybe over several weeks, it sank in more and more. As I made the connect. First, I was just so happy to be alive.
Right.
And then as I started to analyze and look back, I realized, wait a minute. I said the prayer. I felt very calm and peaceful.
And you knew you'd be fine.
I knew I'd be fine, and I knew it before the doctor knew it. And I went to sleep that night. And that sleep that I got because I was calm and peaceful probably helped me get through this.
Might have helped your body heal.
Yeah, so many things happened there. But it takes you a while of looking back to see the different deeper levels of what happened.
I wonder if even years for it to really sink in. I don't know. I guess we're just speculating. But I wonder, it was many years later, and Irv's story is actually the foreword.
Yeah.
In one of our 5-book series, Testimonies of God's Love, were some beautiful stories in here about relationships with God and prayers answered, just uplifting and beautiful. And you volunteered to write the foreword. I wonder, and I'm just asking, this wasn't part of the interview, but I wonder if writing the foreword, and I don't just want an answer, I'm just curious, did you, and that's many years later, 20 years later, 30 years later? Did that take it even deeper?
Actually, when I wrote the foreword, that's when I realized that there were prayers in my heart that I didn't even know were there.
Okay.
And that they had been answered over years.
Okay, for a relationship.
Yeah, as I was ready to experience the answer to the prayers, it's like God knew which prayer to make me aware of.
So he had been answering prayers that you didn't know you had all these years. And you wrote the foreword, that must have been,
about 25 years.
25 years later.
Yeah.
Are you saying when you wrote the foreword, because you volunteered to write the foreword, is that when you really kind of got it?
Yes, and when I read the foreword now, sometimes I get little insights that even go deeper than when I read the foreword.
Wow.
Because I can link them to things that I've learned and experienced since then.
Very cool.
So it hasn't stopped.
Well, I'm glad you were
blessing hasn't stopped.
Very ill. I guess it changed your life.
It did.
In hindsight, will you change anything?
No, I'm grateful that it happened.
It seemed like that was a catalyst to an incredibly abundant life.
Yes.
With a beautiful relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and Diane have the most amazing relationship.
We do.
You know his language of divine, things I teach up here in retreats, how to recognize his love, sometimes dramatic and sometimes very subtle, every day. I think I've known you for quite a while now, over 20 years.
Yeah, pushing
And
30.
I know you recognize his love in
Yes.
the big things and the little things. And I don't know if you would have ever gotten that close, knowingly that close, without having something to kind of wake you up a little bit. So it turned out to be a blessing.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else you'd like to share, Irv?
Just, I'm blessed to be aware that God's always with me and that He loves me very much. And I know that He's there for everyone else, that He loves everybody else too.
Would you
Just
like
the
them
same.
to know like you do?
That would be awesome if they knew that.
It would be awesome. He loves all his children equally. He cherishes his children. And it's not based on what we do. It's just because we're his children.
Yeah.
So that'd be an awesome wish for all of you out there. And a lot of you may know this, but someday, if you don't, I hope you all have a relationship like Irv has with God. It'll change your life for the better in every way. So thank you, Irv, and thank you, audience. I hope this show in some way blessed you or motivated you or encouraged you. And maybe some of you go back and realize you've had similar experiences, but you hadn't thought about it. It only took Irv, my friend here, like 25 years. So anyway, so thanks so much for watching.